Have you ever wondered if your toys could be more than just lifeless objects? What if that innocent-looking doll sitting on the shelf isn't so innocent after all? Tonight on Nightmare Ghost, we're diving into the spine-chilling, blood-curdling true story of Annabelle the doll, a tale so terrifying that it inspired movies, books, and countless sleepless nights. Buckle up, because this isn't just a story, it's a warning. It all started in the summer of 1970. Donna, a 28-year-old nursing student, was living in a modest apartment with her best friend Angie. They were young, ambitious, and ready to take on the world. To celebrate Donna's graduation, her mother gave her a peculiar gift, a vintage Raggedy Ann doll. It was old-fashioned yet charming, with its red yarn hair, black button eyes, and permanent stitched smile. Donna placed it in her bedroom, thinking of it as nothing more than a nostalgic decoration. At first, the doll seemed harmless. Donna and Angie laughed about how it added a childhood vibe to the otherwise clinical atmosphere of their apartment. The doll sat quietly on Donna's bed, its floppy arms spread out as if it were waiting for a hug. But within weeks, small, unexplainable things began happening. One evening, after coming home from a long shift at the hospital, Donna noticed something odd. The doll wasn't on her bed where she had left it. Instead, it was sitting on the couch in the living room. Puzzled, Donna asked Angie if she had moved it. Angie shrugged it off, saying she hadn't touched it. The same thing happened the next day. This time, the doll was found kneeling in the corner of the room, its head tilted as if it were watching them. Donna tried to kneel the doll back into the same position, but the soft fabric body wouldn't hold the pose. How did it stay like that? She wondered aloud. As days turned into weeks, the doll's movements became more frequent and more bizarre. Sometimes it would appear in the kitchen. Other times, it would be found slumped near the front door, as if trying to leave the apartment. Donna and Angie began to feel uneasy, but they told themselves it was probably just their imagination, or one of them moving it absent-mindedly. But then came the notes. One morning, Angie found a small piece of parchment paper on the dining table. On it, written in a childlike scrawl, were the words, "Help us." Startled, she showed it to Donna, who dismissed it as a prank. "Maybe one of your friends is messing with us," Donna suggested. But the notes kept appearing, each one more unsettling than the last. "Help Lou." The name sent chills down their spines. Lou was a close friend of theirs who often visited the apartment. He had always expressed a dislike for the doll, saying it gave him a bad feeling. But how could the doll know his name? The turning point came one night when Donna found something truly horrifying. She entered her room and saw what looked like drops of blood on the doll's hands and chest. The fabric was soaked in a deep red stain that hadn't been there before. "Where did this come from?" she whispered, her hands trembling as she picked it up. It was then that Donna and Angie realized they needed help. What had started as strange movements had now escalated into something far more sinister. They decided to consult a local medium, hoping to uncover the truth about what, or who, was haunting their apartment. Little did they know, their nightmare was just beginning. It was then that Donna and Angie realized they needed help. What had started as strange movements had now escalated into something far more sinister. They decided to consult a local medium, hoping to uncover the truth about what, or who, was haunting their apartment. The medium arrived at Donna and Angie's apartment a few days later. At first, she didn't seem particularly concerned. She felt the air in the room, walked around the apartment slowly, and asked them to recount the events that had been happening. After hearing their story, the medium agreed to try a seance to communicate with the spirit inside the doll. She warned them, though, that spirits often linger in places they feel connected to, and this doll might be the object holding the spirit trapped. As the seance began, the atmosphere in the room changed. The air became thick and oppressive, as though something unseen was pushing in from every corner. The medium's voice grew louder as she called out, trying to contact the entity. Suddenly, the room temperature dropped, and the candle flames flickered violently. Without warning, the medium went silent, her face drained of color. She stared at the doll, which now seemed to have a life of its own. "The spirit inside the doll isn't a young girl," the medium whispered, her voice trembling. "It's something much darker, something ancient, a demonic presence, using the doll as a vessel to get close to you." Donna and Angie were frozen in shock, not knowing what to say or do. What had once been a harmless gift from her mother now seemed like a cursed object, its true nature revealed. But before they could react, the medium gave them a dire warning. "The entity inside this doll is not just seeking attention, it is seeking to possess one of you. You need to get rid of it immediately." But Donna was too afraid to part with it. She couldn't explain why, but something inside her felt connected to the doll. She dismissed the medium's warnings, telling herself it would all go away, that it was all just a figment of her imagination. Angie, on the other hand, wasn't as easily convinced. She didn't want to keep the doll in the house, but Donna refused to let go. The following week saw the doll's presence become more oppressive. Lou, a close friend of Donna and Angie, had been wary of the doll from the start. He couldn't shake the sense that something was wrong with it. He had felt an intense, almost palpable evil around it, and every time he was near it, he felt as though he was being watched. One night, Lou stayed over at the apartment, hoping to help his friends understand what was really going on. He had no idea just how bad things had gotten. It was around 3 a.m. when Lou woke up, feeling a suffocating pressure in the air. The room was eerily quiet, and for some reason the darkness seemed heavier than usual. He opened his eyes only to see the doll sitting at the foot of his bed, staring at him with its lifeless black eyes. Suddenly, Lou felt an overwhelming force pushing down on his chest, as though invisible hands were pressing against him, cutting off his breath. He struggled, unable to move, his heart pounding in his chest. The sensation was so intense that he thought he might die right there, in that room, with the doll watching. He managed to break free, gasping for air, and ran out of the apartment, not looking back. Donna and Angie were left terrified, unsure of what to make of the encounter. Lou was convinced that the doll was responsible for the feeling of suffocation, and he begged Donna to get rid of it. But Donna, still in denial, refused to let it go. She insisted it was just a bad dream, or a figment of Lou's imagination. But deep down, she knew something had changed. The doll wasn't the same as it had been before. It had become more than just an object. It had become a force, something evil, something dark, that couldn't be ignored. Then came the final straw. One evening after a long day at work, Donna came home to find the doll again. But this time it wasn't sitting innocently on the chair or the bed. This time it was standing upright in the corner of the room, facing her. It wasn't just standing, it was moving, slowly, agonizingly slowly. It turned its head to face Donna, its eyes locked on her with an intensity that sent chills down her spine. The air felt thick, and Donna's breath caught in her throat. That was when she knew. This was no longer a prank or a coincidence. Something inside that doll had become real, and it was getting stronger. Terrified and desperate, Donna contacted a local priest for help. The priest, a man of faith, could sense the malevolent presence immediately. He agreed to come over and perform an exorcism on the doll. Donna didn't know what to expect, but she was willing to try anything. Little did she know, this would only be the beginning of their nightmare. With the situation escalating beyond their control, Donna knew she needed help from someone with more experience in the supernatural. That's when she turned to Ed and Lorraine Warren, the renowned paranormal investigators who had built a reputation for dealing with the darkest forces. The Warrens had investigated numerous cases of possession and demonic activity, and their expertise was exactly what Donna and Angie needed. The Warrens arrived at the apartment one cold evening, their presence bringing a small amount of comfort to Donna. But as soon as Lorraine stepped into the room, she felt an immediate change in the atmosphere. "This place is thick with darkness," she muttered under her breath, her face reflecting both concern and disbelief. Lorraine, a gifted clairvoyant, could sense the malevolent energy immediately. She said nothing for a moment, her eyes fixed on the doll, which seemed to stand motionless but somehow alive. Ed, a seasoned demonologist, walked into the room with a firm step, his expression grave. He turned to Donna and Angie. "We're not dealing with a typical haunting. This is much more dangerous than you think. This doll is being used as a vessel for an inhuman spirit, a demonic force that's feeding off your fear." At this revelation, Donna felt a cold shiver run down her spine. She had always thought of the doll as something that could be explained away, but now, with the Warrens' words, it felt as though the ground beneath her was disappearing. She wanted to speak, to protest that it couldn't be true, but the look on Ed's face told her there was no room for denial. The Warrens' investigation began immediately. Lorraine, using her gift, entered a deep trance and began to communicate with the entity. As she closed her eyes, her face contorted in distress, and she spoke in a voice that was not her own. "I am the one who waits, the one who calls." The voice rasped, its tone malevolent and ancient. "I have no body, no face, but I am everywhere. I am in her. I am Annabelle." Donna's heart raced, her knees growing weak. The realization hit her like a freight train. Annabelle wasn't the spirit of a little girl after all. It was a powerful demon, an entity with intentions far darker than anything they could have imagined. Lorraine's voice trembled as she continued. This is not just a possession. This is a demon seeking to possess one of you. It's manipulating the doll, using it as a gateway, trying to get close to its target. The Warrens were immediately concerned for Donna's safety. They could see that the demon had already made its presence known, and it was only a matter of time before it tried to make its move. It's already begun to latch onto you, Ed warned. The doll is only a conduit. The true danger lies within the demon that has attached itself to it. It's using this doll to gain your trust and weaken your defenses. The Warrens decided the best course of action was to remove the doll from the apartment. However, they knew that simply taking the doll would not be enough. It had already grown too powerful, and the demon would not relinquish control so easily. Ed and Lorraine insisted that they perform a cleansing and an exorcism on the doll before they could take it with them. As the Warrens set up their tools and began the ritual, the room seemed to grow colder. The energy became palpable, thick and suffocating. Lorraine, in a state of intense focus, recited prayers and incantations in an attempt to banish the demon from the doll. Ed moved around the apartment, sprinkling holy water and chanting, while Donna and Angie stood frozen, watching the doll with bated breath. But the demon didn't give up easily. Suddenly, the doll seemed to come to life. Its body jerked, its eyes locked onto Ed and Lorraine. The air crackled with tension. For a moment, Donna swore she saw the doll's lips curl into an unnatural grin. "No!" Lorraine shouted, her voice breaking through the tension. "It's resisting. We need to hurry." As Ed continued his prayers, the doll began to shake violently. The sound of its limbs rattling against the glass case filled the room, and a terrifying voice, deep, guttural, and filled with rage, echoed through the apartment. "You cannot take me," it hissed. "I am everywhere, and I will not be contained." The Warrens pressed on, determined not to give the demon any chance to escape. With one final chant, the room erupted in a burst of energy, and the doll fell silent. The oppressive atmosphere lifted slightly, but the tension was far from gone. When it was over, Ed and Lorraine looked at Donna and Angie, their expressions serious. "This is not over," Ed said, his voice heavy. "The doll is still dangerous. We need to take it with us, and we need to keep it contained." Reluctantly, Donna agreed. She knew deep down that she had no choice. The doll wasn't just a cursed object, it was a vessel for something far worse. Something that would stop at nothing to get what it wanted. The Warrens carefully took the doll, placing it inside a locked wooden box that had been blessed by a priest. As they left the apartment, Donna couldn't shake the feeling that the doll's presence was still hanging over her, even as it was carried away. It was as though the very air had been poisoned by it. Little did Donna know, the doll's story was far from over. The worst was yet to come. The dark force that had been unleashed with Annabelle's arrival was far from finished. It was only waiting for the right moment to make its next move. And the Warrens, with all their experience, knew that the doll's story was far from over. As we reach the end of Annabelle's terrifying tale, it's important to reflect on the lessons we can learn from this horrifying encounter. The story of Annabelle the doll is not just one of possession and demonic activity, it's a cautionary tale, a reminder of the dark forces that can lie hidden beneath the surface of the mundane, waiting for an opportunity to strike. One of the first lessons we can learn is the importance of respect. The Warrens' work with haunted objects was never about curiosity or entertainment. It was about understanding the dangers of the supernatural. Annabelle wasn't just a doll, it was an entity, a conduit for something far more powerful and dangerous. The moment Donna and Angie invited the doll into their lives, they unknowingly opened the door to something that was never meant to be in their world. We live in a world where skepticism often leads people to dismiss warnings, to take the supernatural lightly, and to dismiss the reality of dark forces. When the young man, Paul, mocked Annabelle in the Warrens Museum, he learned the hard way that some things should not be mocked or taken lightly. The doll, far from being a mere inanimate object, was a vessel for something that could reach out and harm those who didn't show the proper reverence. The second lesson is that dark forces don't always follow the rules we expect. Annabelle wasn't just a haunted object, it was a doorway, a means for a demon to enter the physical world. The Warrens knew that they couldn't simply remove the doll from the apartment and assume the problem was solved. Even in their museum, with all the protections they placed around it, Annabelle remained a dangerous entity. The demon that had latched onto the doll wasn't bound by the same rules of reality that we are. It could reach out, manipulate, and even attack those who got too close, no matter the precautions taken. The story of Annabelle also teaches us about the power of fear. Fear is what allows dark forces to thrive. When Donna and Angie felt that sense of unease and began to fear the doll, they unknowingly fed the demon inside it. The more afraid they became, the more power they gave to the entity. The Warrens understood that fear could be a conduit for evil, and they worked hard to keep the fear at bay by keeping Annabelle contained. It's a reminder that fear itself is not always an enemy we can simply ignore. Sometimes it's a signal, an instinct, warning us that something is not right. However, when we allow fear to control us, it can weaken our resolve and make us vulnerable to dark influences. Finally, the story of Annabelle is a stark reminder that the supernatural world is often beyond our understanding. Despite the efforts of the Warrens, despite their knowledge and experience, the doll remained a potent force. It was not something that could be easily explained or understood in human terms. We are often taught that science, reason, and logic can explain away the supernatural, but Annabelle defied that notion. Some things, it seems, can't be explained, only endured. Ed and Lorraine Warren spent decades investigating the supernatural, and they understood more than most the immense dangers that lurk in the shadows. But even they were not immune to the power of a malevolent entity like Annabelle. The Warrens' work was not about control, it was about containment, about doing what they could to protect others from the forces they couldn't fully understand. In the case of Annabelle, that meant locking her away, but even then, the demon inside the doll was far from vanquished. As we come to the end of Annabelle's story, we can take away these lessons and use them to navigate the unknowns in our own lives. Whether it's respect for the things we don't understand, an awareness of the power of fear, or an acknowledgement of forces beyond our control, we must remember that some entities and some stories are far more dangerous than we might ever realize. Annabelle's story doesn't end with her being locked away in the Warrens Museum, because the terror she represents is ongoing. It serves as a chilling reminder that evil isn't always something we can see or touch. Sometimes it's hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to make a mistake, to let our guard down, to open the door to things we can't even begin to comprehend. And so, the doll remains, a dark force trapped behind glass, waiting, always waiting. The question is, what will happen next? Thank you for joining us on this chilling journey through the story of Annabelle, the haunted doll. Remember, there are things in this world that we can't always explain. But one thing is certain, some things are better left untouched. Stay safe, and beware the darkness that lurks where you least expect it. It's late at night and the wind is howling through the cracked window as I sit in my dark room. A room too quiet for comfort, filled only by the distant hum of the fluorescent lights above me. But there's a question that won't leave my mind, one that has haunted me for years. What's really inside Area 51? Area 51, a place that has been shrouded in mystery for decades, where rumors swirl and whispers linger in the dark corners of the internet. They say it's a top-secret military base. They say it holds alien bodies, UFOs, experiments beyond human understanding. But the truth is something far darker, far more terrifying than we could ever imagine. Let me take you on a journey, not into the myths and rumors, but into the cold, hard truth that I found out the hard way. And believe me, you'll wish you never asked the question. It all began on a rainy night, one of those nights where the world feels too quiet. The type of night when the dark sky seems to press down on you, and the shadows linger just a little too long. I was alone in my small apartment, hunched over my laptop, mindlessly scrolling through forum posts and videos about conspiracy theories. The usual stuff, UFOs, government cover-ups, paranormal mysteries. I thought I had seen it all before, but then I stumbled upon something I couldn't ignore. It was a forum thread titled, "The Real Secrets of Area 51, posted by an anonymous user with the handle Watcher72. It was just a normal post at first, blending into the hundreds of others, but something about it caught my eye. The details, the specificity. It was different from the usual hearsay and wild accusations. This person claimed to have been inside the most secretive military base in the world. They claimed to have seen things no one was supposed to see. And the scariest part, they said the truth was buried deep in the Nevada desert, just waiting to be uncovered. I wasn't sure whether to laugh or feel a chill creep up my spine. Area 51, the place that had been the subject of countless rumors, books, documentaries, and even Hollywood movies. Everyone knew it was a military base, but what was really inside? Was it aliens, UFOs, or was it something even darker, something that no one was supposed to know? Then came the message that sent a shiver down my spine. If you want to know the truth, you need to follow the stars. They won't find you unless you find them first. What the hell did that mean? I tried to push it out of my mind. It was just another crazy post, right? But I couldn't stop thinking about it. I went back to the thread every day, obsessing over every word, every hint. And each time, something nagged at me, the feeling that there was more here than I was seeing. I started to wonder if the stories about Area 51 weren't just conspiracy theories. What if there was something real, something so terrifying that the government had to keep it hidden? I couldn't resist the pull of it. I had to know more. A few weeks passed, and my obsession grew. I went down a rabbit hole of obscure websites, obscure videos, and strange emails that somehow ended up in my inbox. A pattern began to emerge. A few brave souls who had worked at Area 51, men and women who claimed to have seen things that defied logic, things that twisted the very fabric of reality itself. They were all gone now, wiped off the grid, living in fear of the secrets they knew. But not all of them had been quiet. A few had left behind messages, cryptic clues, and warnings. And then one day, I received something, a small black envelope with a government seal. At first, I thought it was a joke. Maybe someone was messing with me. But when I opened it, my heart skipped a beat. Inside, there was just one piece of paper with a short message. You've been asking the right questions, but the answers you seek will cost you. Are you willing to pay the price? I sat there, staring at the letter in disbelief. Who was this from? Why me? I had to know more. The warning, the mysterious message, the secretive tone. It was all too real. This was no joke. I had been drawn into something that was far beyond my comprehension. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake in my bed, mind racing with questions and theories. What did this mean? Who had sent the letter? And most importantly, what was waiting for me out there in Nevada? I knew I couldn't just ignore it. I had to go. There was a pull inside me, a need to understand, a need to find the truth. I didn't know what I was about to uncover, but I knew it was something big, something that would change everything. And so, the next day I made my decision. I would drive to Nevada. I would go to Area 51. I didn't know what I was looking for, but deep down, I knew that something was there. Something that the world wasn't supposed to know, and I was about to find out what that was. The drive to Nevada was long, the kind of long that makes you question your sanity. It was a quiet, almost desolate place, and yet, there was something about it that felt off. The sky above me stretched out for miles, a dusty blue that seemed to go on forever. The heat from the desert was oppressive, and the roads felt empty, like something was waiting just beyond the horizon. I reached a small town called Rachel, a place that seemed to exist just to serve as a backdrop for those who sought the truth about Area 51. The locals spoke in hushed tones about strange lights in the sky and odd occurrences at night. Everyone knew about the base, but no one dared to talk about it openly. I stopped at a small diner, hoping to get some answers. An old man behind the counter looked at me with a strange kind of recognition. It was as if he already knew why I was there. He gave me a long, measured look, then slid a cup of coffee toward me. "You're here for the truth, aren't you?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. I didn't answer. I didn't have to. I could see it in his eyes. He knew the same thing I did. There was something out there in the desert, something that had been hidden from the world for far too long. After a long silence, he spoke again. "You won't find it by asking questions. The truth about Area 51 is like a door. Once it's opened, you can't close it again." I didn't understand what he meant, but the way he said it, it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I finished my coffee and left the diner, my heart racing in my chest. I had come this far. There was no turning back now. As the sun began to set, I drove toward the infamous Groom Lake Road, the road that led to the gates of Area 51. The headlights of my car cast long shadows on the cracked asphalt, and the silence of the desert felt suffocating. My mind raced with questions, but one thought stood out above the rest. What was really inside Area 51? As I neared the gates, I saw the signs warning trespassers. Restricted area. Use of deadly force authorized. The words seemed to burn into my brain. This was it. I had reached the edge of the unknown. I parked my car a few miles away from the gates and stepped out into the dry desert air. The wind kicked up dust, and I felt a strange sense of calm mixed with dread. I knew this was the moment when everything changed. And then, just as I was about to take my first step toward the gates, something caught my eye. A flash in the sky, a streak of light too fast, too bright to be anything natural. It moved in ways that defied the laws of physics, darting across the sky like something alive. My breath caught in my throat. I wasn't sure if I had seen what I thought I had seen, but deep down, I knew this was just the beginning, and whatever was waiting for me inside Area 51, it wasn't going to be easy to find or to survive. With trembling hands, I opened the door and stepped inside. The door creaked open, revealing a narrow, dimly lit hallway that stretched deeper into the belly of Area 51. The air inside was thick, humid, and oddly metallic, like a warehouse full of secrets that had been waiting for me. The walls were lined with strange symbols, some of them alien and indecipherable, others more familiar but still unsettling. The deeper I went, the more the sense of unease gnawed at me. I had crossed the point of no return. There was no backing out now. I pressed forward, the soft hum of machinery vibrating through the walls, and the further I went, the stronger the feeling that someone was watching me. It was a silent presence, one that made my skin crawl. The hallway opened into a large, high-ceilinged room. What lay inside was unlike anything I had imagined. Rows of metal tables stretched across the room, each one holding strange, otherworldly objects, artifacts that seemed both familiar and alien, pulsating with a faint, eerie light. At the far end of the room stood a massive containment unit. It looked like something out of a science fiction movie, a large cylindrical tank filled with a translucent liquid, and suspended within it, the shape of something alive. I moved closer, my feet echoing off the cold concrete floor. The air grew heavier with each step, and then I saw it, the thing in the tank. It was alive. The creature, if you could call it that, was unlike anything I had ever seen. Its body was a blend of human and something else, something unnatural. Its eyes were wide open, staring into the void of the tank, unblinking. The skin was translucent, almost gelatinous, and I could see veins running beneath it, pulsing with a strange, dark energy. The creature's limbs were long and skeletal, and as it slowly moved, a sense of terrible alien intelligence radiated from it. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "What is this?" I whispered to myself. The words felt hollow in the vast emptiness of the room. This was no ordinary experiment, no ordinary being. It was something else entirely. Something created, engineered, manipulated. Suddenly, a voice from behind me snapped me out of my trance. It was low, calm, but filled with authority. "You shouldn't be here." I spun around, my heart leaping into my throat. A man in a dark suit stood in the doorway, his face expressionless, his eyes cold and calculating. His presence was almost as chilling as the creature in the tank. "Who are you?" I demanded, trying to sound braver than I felt. My mind raced. How did he get in here? The man didn't answer immediately. Instead, he took a step toward me, his gaze fixed on the creature in the tank. "You came here looking for answers," he said finally, his voice steady, almost emotionless. "But some answers are better left unknown." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "What is that thing? What the hell are you doing here?" The man didn't flinch, his eyes never leaving the creature. "It's the truth you've been seeking," he said, his voice now laced with a hint of warning. "The truth that you're not ready for." I couldn't tear my eyes away from the creature. It felt like everything I had ever known, about the government, about the world, about reality itself, was crumbling in front of me. "I don't understand," I said, my voice shaking. "What is it? Why is it here? Why have you been hiding it?" The man sighed, finally looking at me. His expression softened slightly, as if he was about to reveal something profound, something that had been buried for decades. "You've heard the rumors, the stories about Area 51. The UFOs, the aliens. You think it's just conspiracy theory nonsense. But you're wrong," he said, stepping closer, his voice lowering. "This place, it's not about extraterrestrial life. It's about us. Humanity's attempt to go beyond the natural order, to create something new, something better. This is the next step in human evolution." I took a step back, my mind reeling. "You've been experimenting on people?" I whispered, horrified. The man nodded. "Not just people. These creatures, hybrids of humans and extraterrestrials, are the result of years of research. We've been trying to merge the best aspects of both worlds, to create a race that can survive anything, that can transcend our current limitations. What you see here is just the beginning." My breath quickened, and I felt a chill run down my spine. What happened to it? What happened to them? The man looked at the creature in the tank with something akin to pity. "It was a failure, a prototype. There were many more before it, but this one is different. It's more advanced than the others, but it's still not ready. It's too dangerous, too unpredictable." I shook my head, unable to process what I was hearing. "You can't just create something like this. This isn't science. This is madness." The man's gaze hardened. "You don't understand. We're not creating monsters. We're creating immortality. This thing, and the others like it, will be the future of humanity. We'll never have to fear death, disease, war. We'll transcend it all." I felt a wave of nausea hit me. "You've been playing God, messing with things you don't understand." For the first time, the man's expression flickered, a brief flash of something almost like regret. But it was gone before I could catch it. "Maybe, but we've come too far now. There's no going back. It's already too late." Suddenly, the lights above us flickered. The hum of machinery grew louder, more frantic, like something was malfunctioning. The creature in the tank started to twitch, its eyes flashing wide open as if it had been awakened by our conversation. It began to move, slowly at first, but then faster, more violently, thrashing against the tank, its long limbs scraping against the glass. The man turned to the creature with a mix of fear and urgency. No, this isn't supposed to happen." He rushed forward, his hands fumbling at a control panel, but the creature's thrashing grew more intense. The tank started to crack, shards of glass breaking off, and the strange liquid began to spill out in a thick, bubbling cascade. I stood frozen, watching the chaos unfold before me, my mind racing. The creature's eyes met mine, cold, unfeeling, and yet somehow knowing. It locked onto me, and for a moment, I could feel its presence inside my mind. It was aware of me. It knew me. The room erupted into chaos as alarms blared, and the man shouted frantically at the creature, trying to regain control. But it was too late. The creature broke free, its body twisting and contorting as it lunged toward the man. The room seemed to collapse around us, the ground shaking, the walls closing in. And I realized too late that I had made a terrible mistake. I had found the truth, but the truth had found me too, and it wasn't done with me yet. I had found the truth, but the truth had found me too, and it wasn't done with me yet. The creature's scream echoed in the chambers of Area 51 as I stumbled backward, panic rising within me. I barely registered the man's frantic attempts to regain control over the situation. My legs felt weak, my mind was spinning, and the ground beneath me trembled as the monstrous hybrid tore through the room with unrelenting fury. I could barely make out the flashing lights and blaring alarms above the chaos, but one thing was clear. I was in a war zone, a place where nothing made sense anymore. I had stumbled upon something so dangerous, so forbidden, that I could feel its malevolent presence crawling inside my skin. The creature, a fusion of human and extraterrestrial genes, was no longer confined by the sterile glass. It was free, and its thirst for destruction was evident. The man who had guided me this far, who had shown me the depth of their twisted ambitions, was now fighting for his life, desperately trying to stop the creature that had once been his creation. But there was no stopping it. The creature was more than a failed experiment. It was a new breed of being beyond our comprehension. I turned and ran. My mind was a blur as I sprinted down the hallways of Area 51, the echo of my footsteps drowned out by the cacophony of alarms and the sounds of destruction behind me. I could hear the creature's growls, its eerie shrieks growing louder as it pursued me, its limbs slamming into the walls, sending vibrations through the air. The very building seemed to be shaking under the force of its rampage. I didn't know where I was going. All I knew was that I needed to escape. I needed to get out of that place, out of its grasp. But the hallways twisted and turned, each one more labyrinthine than the last. I was disoriented, the terror in my chest clouding my thoughts, and I had no idea if I was even heading in the right direction. I rounded a corner and crashed into a door, flinging it open. But I didn't stop. I kept running, not daring to look back. The next thing I remember is the sound of a helicopter. The buzzing of its rotors grew louder as I finally made it to the outside, the cold desert air hitting me like a slap in the face. I didn't know who they were or how they had gotten here, but there was no time to ask questions. I jumped into the helicopter, its engines roaring to life as we ascended into the night sky, leaving the chaos of Area 51 behind. For a brief moment I thought I had escaped, that I had outrun whatever nightmare I had uncovered. But as I looked down at the distant desert below, something inside me knew. It wasn't over. It was never over. The truth I had discovered was too dangerous. The people who ran this place, they weren't going to let me walk away without consequences. They couldn't. They wouldn't. The dark web of secrets they had woven wasn't just going to disappear. They would silence me, and they would do it without hesitation. I don't know how long I was on the run after that. Weeks, months, I lost track of time, always looking over my shoulder, never staying in one place for too long. I moved from town to town, always on edge, always aware of the eyes watching me, the people who knew what I had seen, what I had learned. And then one day, I woke up to find everything had changed. The world had gone quiet. Too quiet. There were no more whispers, no more rumors about Area 51, no more conspiracy theories about alien experiments. It was as if it had all been erased, as if the place itself had never existed. The government, the people who ran the experiments, they had done what they do best. They had covered it all up, but I knew the truth. I couldn't forget what I had seen. I couldn't forget the hybrid in the tank, the look in its eyes, cold, calculating, alive. I couldn't forget the man's warning, the way the creature had looked at me as it tore through the lab. That knowledge, that terrifying truth, had been etched into my mind, into my soul. It was a darkness that I couldn't unsee, and as I walked the streets trying to live some semblance of a normal life, I felt the weight of it all pressing down on me. I knew it was only a matter of time before someone would come looking for me, someone who wanted to make sure the secrets of Area 51 stayed buried forever. But no matter how far I ran, no matter how many times I tried to escape, I knew deep down that the truth would always find its way to the surface. Maybe it wasn't just about Area 51. Maybe it was about everything we had been taught to believe, about the lies we had been fed, about the things that lurked in the shadows, waiting to break free. The truth, it always comes crashing down in the end. As I sat alone in a dark corner of a cafe, staring into my cup of coffee, I realized that I was no longer the person I had been before that fateful night. I had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed, stepped into a world where the boundaries between reality and nightmare were blurred beyond recognition. I had learned the truth about Area 51, but it was only the beginning, and as I sat there, a cold shiver ran down my spine. I couldn't shake the feeling that the creature, the hybrid, the thing that had once been locked away in that tank, was still out there, watching, waiting for the right moment to finish what it had started. And when that moment came, there would be no place for me to hide. In this epilogue, the protagonist finally escapes Area 51, but the horrifying truth follows them. They are left to grapple with the consequences of discovering secrets meant to be kept hidden. As the story closes, a chilling uncertainty looms. Is the nightmare truly over, or is it only just beginning? The ending leaves room for further exploration, a final nod to the inescapable terror that lingers in the shadows.